Guys, we are live coming to you after this game tonight. And yeah, coming off a loss to the Bills here at home. And a lot of questions that we're going to get into, a lot more questions and answers that we think that might be with this team now. Tough game at home. We'll get into it all right after this.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
Look at this run. What a run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leo reaching to catch. Smith and Jimbo. The Seahawks are going to hold the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does. Is it going to be
You've
another
got to
9
look for
and 8?
players who've got to finish something.
They have to fix the offensive
Part of his
line.
success and part of
Ambition of being the LOB one again.
Here, that's trading DK Metcalf.
Play him aggressive.
This is the HawksZone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
Oh, looks like Ryan had some technical difficulties there right off the bat, guys. Sorry about that. Oh, and he's back in.
We are back. That was a button error. So, guys,
okay.
welcome back here in the Hawk Zone. Guys, before we get into any of this, just some quick housekeeping for you guys. If you've been watching the channel over the last while and you haven't went down a subject, go down, hit the subscribe button for us and like button, share the videos. And it's a good way to support the channel. Or you can buy us a coffee or a beer and buy me a coffee /HawksZone. And you can do that. And super chat, super like, all that really helps us out, helps the channel. And guys, we're pushing for that 1,000 sub mark. We're getting close, man. We're getting real close. We're going to start opening up some membership programs too. So there's going to be some perks that we'll discuss throughout the coming weeks and some cool stuff. So with all that out of the way, Bryce, what's happening, man? This is I came out of this game and I know we were high on a lot of this stuff. Well, you know, it was trending in the right direction after that Atlanta game. I came out of this one, man, kind of, I don't know if I'm back to square one, but I got a lot more questions than answers, man.
Yeah. It was funny because when I was on Dan's show this week, Dan proposed the question to me. He goes, "Hey, you know, how do you feel about this team after this victory? Are you back to being super, you know, kind of eager and excited and think they're going to go on a run here, or are you kind of still waiting?" And during that 49ers loss, even into the Atlanta game, I'd kind of come to the realization with this team, they're a team in transition and they're a team in building. And there's going to be a lot more valleys in this season than we were initially prepared for after starting 3-0. And I think a lot of us got our hope and the hype got up. And, you know, I was one of those individuals. I looked at today's game, and I know on our show I picked Seattle to win 27-17. And I thought that was a possibility for the Hawks today. I thought if they did certain things, you know, considering how beat up the Bills were in the middle of that defense in the second level, that they could, you know, exploit some opportunities there. But I think you've really got to look at what they think they are and what they actually are. And the Hawks are not who I think some of the coaches staff thought they were going to be. I think Ryan Grubb might be struggling more than we all anticipated with his, and I don't think it's a college to NFL struggle like a lot of people want to allude to. I think it's an understanding of the players he has and what they're actually capable of. I think him and Scott Huff might have got a little too happy with, oh, we've got all these skill positions. It's going to be okay, and it's going to cover up this massive issue that we've got in the middle of our offensive line, which honestly today was the worst showing of it. Like the 49ers didn't even beat it in that badly as the Bills did today. This is going to be kind of a interesting show. We both kind of have different takes, ironically, on where this team is. Like I said, I view them as a transition and building team. And they're going to have games like this. They played a team that's, in my opinion, a Super Bowl contender. And you could see the glaring differences in that through roster construction, through attacking of the team. One thing that stood out to me, just a quick thing, we are way too shotgun dependent on offense. Tom Brady alluded to it in the broadcast today. And that's one thing when I look at what Buffalo did. And Buffalo was a very shotgun dependent team when Ken Dorsey was their offensive coordinator a couple of years ago. And they went to Joe Brady and they now become a team that's more balanced and under center. And you could see that today in how they were able to run the ball when they mixed into shotgun and got Josh back there and let him do his thing. You could see how it puts the defense a bit on their, heels. Like there was that one seam ball he threw I think it was the third quarter, fourth quarter to Kincaid, and there was nobody near him, but it's because he did it from under center, which a lot of teams don't throw that seam ball from under center. And a team I think that runs the best offense in the NFL is not the Kansas City Chiefs, is what Ben Johnson does with Detroit. And Detroit mixes under center, shotgun, all that stuff with their offense, and that's something we don't do. And you can see teams just pin their ears back and come after Geno because they're like, okay, cool. Like Seattle's going to be in shotgun 70% of their offensive snaps or more. Running the ball from shotgun's hard. It's not easy. Like this needs to be a breakdown on offense, especially of how we're going to change our philosophy going forward.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I agree with, Buffalo obviously as a Super Bowl contending team, but when we broke down the game a couple days ago, we kind of looked at the Bills and said, listen, they haven't been this juggernaut this year so far. Like, they've had some favorable games. They played the Jags, they played the Jets, they got beat up by the Ravens. They lost to the Texans. To me, the Texans aren't a Super Bowl contending team right now. I like CJ Stroud, but I don't think they're there. They're a young, improving team for sure. Baltimore, yes, but then you look at the way we played, and it was like, then that was kind of our thing. Like we had the Giants come in here, who are not a good team. And we just, again, imploded, beat ourselves. We were sulking on the sidelines, that kind of stuff. Today was sloppy. And I'm not even using the weather as an excuse because the Bills beat us up and they played in the same weather. I mean, the game was sloppy. Again, the run defense, poor. Tackling again, not good. So I look at it and I know we're going to get into some stuff about this roster construction, John Schneider, and I understand that. And I know you're on one side, but I'm not completely on the other side. I think some of it, yes, but I also look at it like this. And guys, get your comments in here. Fire in the comments right now. We want to really engage here today because this is kind of we're at the midway point here of the season, and we want to hear from you guys. What did you think of the game overall? Is there way more questions than answers still, or more so than before the year started? But I look at it and I say it's a combo for me. I agree. There's John is under a microscope now because Pete's not there, and maybe he's exposed a little more to how he's constructed some of these things. But we also looked at some of these guys coming in the season and say they just need a Mike McDonald, and so either we're completely wrong, but I do think that it's a bit of both. Like Mike is just not getting away scot-free. I think he definitely has some responsibility here. These guys, at the end of the day, they're professional football players, and there's talent on this team. I get that maybe they don't fit what he's doing, but what are we doing right now? And I think right now it's all three facets. So when you look at it, and I'll get your take on this, we have, and I get it, Mike wants to construct this his way. So he decided, I'm bringing in all first-year guys. I'm bringing a brand new D coordinator, brand new O coordinator, brand new special teams guy. So I think you could say some of these guys might be in over their head at this point, and they are getting exposed right now. Now, can it improve? Maybe, but maybe not. I mean, maybe at the end of the year, Mike has to make some decisions. Say, you know what? It's all cool. It sounds great in theory to construct my own staff, as a young core. but maybe it's not the right move. And I'm not calling for people right now. Don't get me wrong. But you mentioned Ryan Grubb, and there's some things we liked about him, but it was like Ken Walker today, 12 rushing yards, I think. Was that the stat line? I pull
Yeah,
it up.
Ken had 12 carries. Hold on, I'll pull it up for you right now. Just give me
Maybe,
one
maybe the
second
stat was
here.
wrong. We're coming like this is a reaction show, so I don't have
Yeah,
all.
we're coming live here. So let's see here. I think it was 12 carries basically is what he had today.
But for how?
And it was for here we go. Ken Walker, he had 9 carries for 12 yards.
Okay, so I was right on the 12. So when you're not running the ball effectively, and say the first quarter they don't run the ball well, and then they get the interception, and it's just an example, and then they're at the 6 or 7 yard line, something like that, and they go run, 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 and I think that's when Gino tripped up, and
Yep.
they get nothing out of that. That to me is what do you just decide to go in? I'm just going to go in run mode now because we're at the 7. I don't understand the theory. And then we talk about guys like, hey, Jake Bobo, he's supposed to be the situational red zone guy. Well, it didn't look like it there. So that kind of stuff is concerning. And then so those that guys like they have to be called on that. And it's like how. So I'll pose this to you. I want your take on that. And then how does Mike respond in that locker room now? We have to talk about the stuff that's happening. The Jaron Reed, Derek Hall, that was crazy. And I'm all about getting heated up on the sideline, but these were two guys that were locking face like face
Mhm.
masks, and two big dudes that looked like they wanted to go. That to me is a discipline, getting a hold of your locker room. What's the message after this game from McDonald?
Ooh, that's the $1,000,000 question, and it
To
really
me,
is.
that's how you define a good head coach. To me,
Correct. It is, and he made a comment. I think in his post game today. It wasn't exactly about the fighting, but it was about the run game and the fact that they can't get the run game going.
yeah,
And he basically said, like, I keep telling you guys this, like, it's a major concern. And he's like, I don't know what the one answer is. He's like, it's a multitude of things, and we can't seem to figure it out right now. This is what I mean by transition and building. I think getting rid of, so just one caveat here. I think getting rid of Larry Izzo as our special teams coordinator was a blunder by McDonald.
right.
Larry Izzo runs a very good special teams unit. Bringing in Jay Harbaugh, I don't know, has panned out the way he thought it was going to. I haven't seen the need for it because our special teams isn't acting any different or any better than what it was with Larry Izzo. I'd actually say in some respects we're doing worse in some areas.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be, it's really interesting because I don't think Ryan Grubb, I'll break down kind of each situation here. Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff, I think, are on a 2-year situation here where this is year 1. Year 2, if they don't get it right with getting more of their kind of guys in, they're going to be gone and they'll be back
I can
in
agree with
college.
that. Yeah.
Durday, I think he has made an impact because the D-line does look better. They're better at creating pressure.
Yeah, they're
Some of
up
that
there in the
scheme
league of
too.
pressures. Yeah.
So he is paying dividends because you look at the jump Derek Hall's taken as a pass rusher. So I think Durday's okay. But again, Mike's calling the plays. It's his defense. He's calling the plays. He alluded to that at the beginning of the year.
Exactly.
I think one of the biggest blunders, and this is something I'll give Pete Carroll credit for, and Pete was really good at it. Pete was good at identifying leaders.
Yep. Let's talk about that.
So
here's put this up right now since we're talking.
There you go.
Somebody chime
Robin,
in
yes,
right now. We talked about
exactly.
that off air.
We talked about this off air before we came on.
Talk about Pete and leaders, but like what we had before. And
So
you
look at the beginning of this offseason, or I should say into training camp, Mike McDonald came out and made a statement, and I think you can go back and find it, where he said that or it might have been him or Lincoln Tomlinson made the statement that they had a leadership group of about 10 players, and Lincoln Tomlinson was one of them. And you look at throughout the season, they've had rotating captains. Every game's a new captain. Pete never did that. Pete had his guys. and they were identified. But he also had his guys that could control the locker room. And so when you look back to the LOB era, you had Bobby, KJ Wright, Cam Chancellor, Red Bryant, Marshawn Lynch, Richard Sherman, Russ. You had guys that would basically govern themselves. Brandon Meebane, the list goes on of guys that were, kind of Pete guys that just, but Cam was kind of Pete's guy. Cam and Doug were Pete's guys to like, hey, we need to get shit squared away in this locker room, get it done. I'm not going to step in. You guys govern yourselves.
Let me just chime in and like, to your point. Remember when there was questions about, hey, maybe we can bring this guy in, and they'd be like, yeah, don't worry. The guy, maybe he had a past here. You got the leaders like the guys you just mentioned. Guy, you're not gonna mess around in that locker room. You talk about the Percy Harvins or whatever. Like, don't worry about him coming in here because we got the guys that no nonsense shit is gonna happen, right?
Well, you look at what happened during Super Bowl 48 when we won the Super Bowl. Percy Harvin punched Golden Tate on the bus going into that game. And that group was able to handle that, deal with it, and go and lay a whooping on the Denver Broncos. This is where I wonder if that's something that Mike McDonald would change, if he could go back and be like, no, I need to identify who my guys are. Who are my leaders? And just go with it. Because KJ, before he left to go coach the Niners, did an interview on 710. And they asked him, who are the leaders in the Seahawks locker room? And he was kind of cat got his tongue, didn't know what to say. And he spat out Jarran Reed. He's like, maybe Jarran Reed? And it's like, well, Jarran Reed, yes, he knows how to do it, but I don't know if Jarran Reed's the guy you want to be one of those leaders. You want some of these young guys to take on that role and step into it. It's their team. It's not really Jarran Reed.
We were talking last year, like maybe Spoon could have been one of those guys. And
dude, don't even get me on Spoon right now.
Hey, well, we got to, right? I mean, that's the thing. There's so many questions on this team. Like you talk about, I mean, there's two guys, and we're not coming on here like ragging on guys, but we can question stuff. And the thing is that two guys, you're going to talk Spoon, first round pick, and I'm going to question JSN as a first round pick at this point of his career. And I understand it's only year 2 for both guys, but you talk about leaders and you talk about like Jarran Reed. You got to be, you have to have that combination of leadership, but also effective on the field. You know what I mean? Whereas like Jarran's like, yeah, okay, he's like not, he's not that guy. Like, whereas like other guys, it was just interesting how they did it. And like you said, like a guy like you could have heated stuff on the bus. It wasn't about like, oh, we all gotta be, prim and proper and nothing, no heated debates here, guys. Like that was what they were about. But they knew how to like get it in check and focus on ball and winning. And I feel like to your point, it's kind of all over the place right now. And who do you turn to? For example, Derek Hall and well, your leader there, going at it. So who is that? What is that locker room like now? That's what you have to look at. So now you just got your ass whooped. You're all back in that locker room. How is that dealt with? Who is dealing with that besides Mike McDonald? Like you said, your peers. Who is taking control and saying, guys? And who would have done that in that era with Pete and those guys. The guys that would have taken care of business and been like, let's get this straightened out and whatever. But now you're like, man, this is, to me, like, you get worried of is it going to unravel more? Like if they keep losing, that's when you see it. And then Mike, man, that gets dangerous, and all of a sudden now this defensive genius as a coordinator, you start having questions about his head coaching ability. And again, I'm not saying it's early for that, but you can question it because if you pile on the losses, we're going to talk about the Rams game next week. That is not going to be an easy game at all. So if you go into that and you go into the bye losing 2, Mike's job just starts becoming harder and harder.
It definitely does. It's This is kind of almost where you look to Leslie Frazier a little bit and his experience and, guiding Mike to an extent on how do we get this going in the right direction. Um, to wrap it up with the coaching staff, I think this coaching staff majority will be back next year. Regardless of how this season goes, they're going to give them a do-over. But with that being said, I think the one thing fans really need to start looking at is John Schneider.
Mm.
And his construction of this team, because yes, people want to say, well, the coach has to, coach what he's got. That's true. And I agree. The coaching staff is not excelling like we thought they would in some aspects.
But are we that like is our personnel that bad? Like, and that's
I don't
because
know if it's a bad thing. This is kind of the weird thing. Well, I will say this: our offensive line personnel interiorly, yes, it is that bad. It is the worst.
But we've had bad offensive lines the last decade.
I think,
and I agree with you. Like, it has to improve, and John needs to focus on it. But I'm also not going to make that as an excuse for Mike. Like, it's like,
no. What I'm trying to get at with this, more or less, is I look at the fact we kept thinking, and this was me included, and a lot of people did, that a coaching change was going to make us go from 9-8 to 10 or 12 wins. That was the issue. That was the biggest issue. I kind of was thinking about this while watching the game today. I went, were we really a 9-8 was our ceiling, and we weren't really a 5-11 team or a 5-12 team or whatever the equation works out to be now? Because I'm not seeing a 10 or 12 win team right now. I don't see it talent-wise. I just don't, because you don't have the depth. There's no depth on this roster. Like,
yeah.
It's hard to say there isn't. Because one receiver goes down. To your point.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that. Guys, anybody, most of the people that have been tuning in are, but you hear it. You just can't get away from it. You thought at some point, hey, maybe this is cooled down. And then one thing happens, and then here come the haters again with DK.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think they were pretty quiet today, but how is life? There is a little glimpse of life without DK Metcalf. And you can touch on this. But my biggest takeaways is what else a number one receiver does than just like making the big time plays. The Ken Walker 12 rushing yards. Okay. Also, why was that? There was no receiving threat on this team today. Buffalo wasn't worried about anybody. Who are they worried about? Jake Bobo? Like, guys, just be honest with yourselves. Jake's a great story. I like him. But when you run a 5-flat 40 in the NFL, you're not going to create much separation, especially if you're going to go against, better players, because DK is not there to take away any of the attention. Now, JSN to me is the jury's still out, whether he was worth that a first round pick at this point. I mean, his route running's clean. But is he just going to be a really solid slot receiver? I don't think he's not he'll never be a number one receiver in my opinion. I think he'll be a good receiver, but life without DK Metcalf, you saw it today.
Yeah, you did. And as much as people give it being like, oh, DK's not, a top 5 receiver, DK's ability to do certain things demands defenses to respect that ability in certain areas of the field. And you could see it today. Like, you literally saw your life that everyone's craving for. Yeah, take Tyler Lockett out because maybe he's back, maybe he's not, and input Chenault in there or some other receiver. You saw what it's like. They're not the same. It was tough to watch the offense just as a whole today, and I don't know if this offense is going to get the continuity that it's looking for. And I'm just going to go to this kind of, you posted up Hawk fan Matt here. He said, McDonald always seems very chill in his pressers, but maybe that's just his public facing persona. I have no feel of how he relates to the players beyond the X's and O's. That's very fair. Like, we don't know how that works, we got stuff going in here as well. I'm just gonna say this, man. Yeah, it was painful, Nate. It was extremely painful to watch. It looked like a team that hasn't really been properly constructed the way that it should have been.
Well,
On this one, Nate.
also to Nate here with the ball, it's a frustration thing, man. Like
Yep.
it's a discipline and frustration thing. I get it. I agree, Nate. You can't be, but I mean, I don't. These guys are humans. I mean, not they. I think their expectations as well. These guys think they probably think they should be better than what they are. Maybe they're not better, and then that's what you're going to get. You're getting creamed at home. Look, there's no home field advantage right now at Lumen.
No,
And I don't think that's
there's
going to
not.
change in a long time. And I'm not even talking about Bills Mafia or Niners gang that are coming in our house. There's no advantage because I went years ago to a Green Bay game. That was the interreception or whatever they call it. Remember that when they had the replacement refs? I was down at that game. There was a ton of cheeseheads, right? But so there was that. But look, you got your ass handed to you at home. You got blown. You got embarrassed by the Giants. You got run down your throat. We have one win at home this year. Is that right? Denver.
Denver
Okay.
and Dolphins.
Okay. And Dolphins without Tua. Okay, with quarterbacks that barely should be in the NFL. So it's discouraging, but I can see the frustration. I mean, you talk about Gino, yeah, but again, we just mentioned Jaron Reed and Hall. Frustration, like who are the leaders? Those are questions, man. Those are questions that can be questioned. And with Hawks fan Matt talking about, hey, I don't know what this guy's like beyond the X's and O's. Like, so that's the biggest thing. How do you come in that locker room with like what Nate mentioned, Gino doing this, Derek Hall doing what, that little thing happened. How do you bring the guys together? And that is a true leader. And that's a guy that, again, it's not like he's got a short leash. Like, Mike, if you don't do this, you're out. But the the window isn't massive in the NFL either. It's not like, well, we'll give you 4 or 5 years. You like you said, we got to, like, if this team is showing no signs by the end of the season, are we doing just a fire sale overhaul? And like that's what's going to be concerning, and that's be concerning for John, for Mike. Like, if this just becomes a disaster, then it becomes, what do we do with this roster? Like, how do we like pick apart in year 2? It's a little better.
So here's something I'm going to pose to you as a question, and just because you got on that topic, Ryan, I'm going to pose this to you as a question. Same roster. Pete Carroll's the head coach with his staff. What's their record right now in comparison? Do you think it's any better, or do you think it's any worse than being 4-4 right now? What do you think? Honest, just quick fire reaction.
Okay. Yeah, no. My fire reaction would be, I would say we're probably similar. We probably have 4-4ish. Give or take. Like, maybe we beat the Giants and we lose to the Falcons. I don't know, but I think 4-4 is sort of fair. So, like, and again, this is not me saying we should keep Pete, because I was always in the boat with you. Like, the time was up, and it was up. And
but that's the thing that's what I want to pose to our listeners too.
So then I'll say this though, and I think a lot of listeners out will let the comments come in, but I also think they would think that certain things should be better, like improved, even in the short half season. Like, we want to see something. Like, you have to be able to say where, like, you want people to be like, okay, this guy is head coach material, not should we have just hired him as our defensive coordinator? Like that's what I'll pose. And again, I'm not saying that right now, but I think at the end of the year or into year 2, like, okay, let's fast forward into year 2. If the same things were happening, those questions start becoming real. You know what I mean? Like, it's like year 1, sure, you're not the guy's coming back next year. There's no question about it. And he'll probably be here in year 3. But if things don't trend differently, if you have roster constructions, then those questions, because we've seen it before, man. Like, we've seen a lot of great coordinators not cut it. And I'm not saying he's the guy that he might turn out to be successful, but you can question that because I think a lot of listeners or fans would say we expect a different look. Like record aside, I think, like you said, if the way they beat Atlanta, if they came in and competed and played like they did, like why was the inconsistency there? Like Buffalo to me didn't do anything
No, we shot
that
ourselves in the foot with Buffalo.
right. So that's what I mean. Like it's not like they came in, they were just sacking Geno left, right, and center. And I know the Ole didn't play great, but there was just from the offensive game plan to just, and I know DK, but you and I knew DK wasn't going to play. We didn't think it was going to be this bad. They played bad ball, and that's
Mhm.
what's more concerning. And so for me, with the Pete and Mike comparison, is just how is he going to gather up this locker room? Because we know how Pete would.
Mhm.
And the thing about Pete, he was there for 14 years, so that message got dry. We understand that. But Pete early on, and I know he had a different squad, but the message wasn't dry. So you knew, hey, this guy, like you loved it. He was running around. He was positive. He got the guys believing in him. So that's what we're going to see. Like that, yet to be known. But I think this year will give us a bit of an idea. I mean, if I don't know if you'd agree with that.
I agree, yes. So, um, yeah, I would say maybe they're like what, they're 4-4, maybe they're 3-5. Maybe they've lost one more game in the
Sure.
Pete potentially just because of Waldron being like, because it's the same staff and everything.
Right.
Hawks fan Matt puts it up here: 19-19 at home the last 5 years. There is no
Well,
home
we
field
know.
advantage at Lumen.
No.
You know,
I feel
and
like
the
it's just
O-line,
it's
here you go.
oh
O-line is a huge problem, and also the identity of this team. They got to find out who they want to be. Totally agree. They have
agree.
to.
Yeah, and we talked about
Um,
that I think a couple of weeks ago or something like that. We said
yeah,
what is the identity? Like we don't have one yet. And you should sort of figure it, like you should sort of trend towards one by now at this point of the year. Like
yeah.
do we want to run the football? But again, I think they do, but it's just not happening. I'm glad DK didn't play today because I don't think he would have made enough of a difference. And just I want him to rest in that weather,
Mhm.
like get healthy. Hopefully he's good to go for the Rams. But yeah, he's a difference maker. I think you talk about difference makers, you know.
They
Touch
come
on a
in
guy.
different ways of
Touch
difference
it.
making.
I know you were going to touch on a guy. We kind of got away from it. Man, and we're not trying to be too critical, but we're questioning stuff. Like touch on Spoon right now. You talk about
Oh,
he was a
jeez.
guy that was talked about last year as maybe becoming a leader of this defense and doing stuff. Talk about him, man.
I don't know if they don't know if he's in a sophomore slump or if they aren't using him in a way that's effective, but you think because he's in the nickel where he was super effective last year that he would be. But like that guy is missing tackles left, right, and center.
Taking
Like
penalties.
taking dumb penalties. Like Shakir today looked like he was prime Julian Edelman putting,
Yeah.
Witherspoon on a roast on just every route. Like he was open all the time. Like I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there going, is that Witherspoon again? Like
Yeah.
where is he? What's he doing?
Yeah.
Woolen looked bad today. Like he looked like last year's Woolen at a point.
Yeah.
That Kincaid touchdown, the effort he gave on that was basically shoved Kincaid into the end zone. Josh Jobe actually, yeah, he had some moments, but had the interception. He overall for a four-string guy is playing in my opinion, he's probably playing better than what Trey Brown was giving us.
Yeah.
Kobe and Julian Love looked fine. Like I didn't really think either one of them looked horrible back there. But Ernest Jones struggled, which is expected. He's
Yeah,
here
he
after
just
4
got here.
days.
Exactly. We just got here.
But like here, I'm just gonna rattle through some of my notes right now, man. And we'll get back to
Yeah.
some
Do
of
it.
these
Do
comments.
it.
But Seattle's first 4 drives. 3 drives that gained, their first 4 drives, 4 drives that gained 3 yards and 3 points. Buffalo's first 4 drives, 14 plays, 90 yards and a touchdown. 6 plays, 30 yards. Then they throw the INT. 12 plays, 93 yards and a touchdown. That's the comparison of 4 drives for each team. Our run defense did not exist. They had 14 rushing first downs compared to 2 passing.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. Like utter garbage. They couldn't contain Allen. Allen was able to move around all day, extend plays, make things happen with his legs. You know, you can't let Josh Allen do that to buy extra time.
No.
Third down efficiency, Bills 8 of 15. We were 1 of 7.
Right. Yeah. I
Like,
mean, which was yeah.
that's a
We'll talk
problem. You're not
talk about
converting.
what do you attribute? I mean, I know we talk O line. I
It's
mean, they
the O-line,
well,
dude. Like, it's
you were
the
missing
O-line.
you were missing DK today, so that's a big one. But
That's fine, but you should have been able to run the ball. The freaking Bills had one of the worst run defenses on the road, and
I
they were
agree.
missing their linebackers. Like, they didn't have anybody, but you couldn't do anything because you couldn't get a push inside.
No, you
Like,
can't get a push. I mean that, but then that's going back to say why did you decide to run the ball 4 times there down near the goal
well,
line?
exactly. But the thing for me, and sitting there watching this game, the big thing for me as an offensive coordinator myself is Seattle is way too shotgun dependent for everything they do.
So that's a
That's
grub
why
thing.
the Lions have such a good offense, is because they mix and match their formations to under center to gun and back and forth. And because you do that, you give a defense a different look. The timing on routes from under center to gun are totally different. Your run plays hit differently. Your offensive line can fire out more. Like, it's just completely different. And that's where even Tom Brady alluded to it on the broadcast. He goes, Seattle's too shotgun dependent. The Bills are just pinning their ears back and going. Like, they don't have to respect anything. When you can go on, and then when you look at Seattle trying to go under center and bring in like Olu Atimi as a fucking tight end.
I saw that, yeah.
Oh, what are we going to do? We're clearly not going to throw it. We're going to run it. We're in I formation for the first time all game with Brady Russell at fullback. Like, what are you doing? Like, that to me just was so asinine. And that to me, this was Ryan Grubb's worst called game by far.
Well, it was funny because we thought, okay, Grubb's gonna have all week to game plan without DK. You know, and that was the thing. So come up with something. But it was like, oh man, I mean, I don't have my guy who I've really force fed, and like you and I said, we don't mind that. We didn't like how he tries to make DK be good at every single route in the
Mhm.
route tree, but we don't mind. Look, he's your number one guy. Yeah, you use him. But I feel like, did you know he was not going to be in the game? Because I mean, what was going on? Like you said, I agree. Worst call game. I mean, here's the thing, man. Where do we go from here? I mean, look, what's his, we got a comment up here saying like I think there needs to be a like
Yeah,
yeah.
Ian, there
I
needs to
mean
be
that
restructuring.
is of course there's going to be some, but how much? Like does that mean is that a thing saying blow it all up, or we just need to tweak? Because yeah, there's a restructure and then there's a restructure. Like does that mean like get rid of DK, Gino, everybody? And start from scratch, or like no, like what we've done in a way in the past where no, we're retooling. You know, that's a nice way of saying to the fans like, well, we're not in rebuild mode, we're just retooling. We're getting a few different tools
I'm so sick of
in the
hearing
toolkit.
that retooling
Well,
shit from
but
John Schneider. Like, you
but okay,
have
so
to
what do
this
we
needs to
do?
be
What do we
reconstructed.
do?
It needs to be rebuilt. And it does. It needs to you need to keep some pieces,
Well,
but you
who do you
do need
keep? Who do you keep? Say let's fast forward to the off season right now. Like we're jumping ahead a bit, but you were pretty much saying, look, this is what this team's going to be. It's not going to be like don't expect anything great with this team this year. So now if you're Schneider, who do you keep on the offense? Do you pay DK? Is Gino your guy moving forward? If you're the GM, let's just throw this, and we like Gino, we think he's
Mhm.
solid. But if you're like, look, we need to make some changes. Do you say let's go with a cheaper option and try to get that next guy in the draft and maybe go with Sam or and keep DK? Like, what would you do?
So it's an interesting thing. So DK, I would pay DK, but I wouldn't give him a massively long extension. I wouldn't give
Sure,
him something that's 4 or 5 years. I'd
right?
allow it to be something where if he wants to get paid again before he's 30, there's an opportunity for that.
Like a
Um,
3-year deal.
yeah, something like that. Gino's the interesting one because I think, again, this goes back to my point after the 49ers game that some people gave me shit for. And and that's fine. And I will stick to my guns on this. Geno is a good quarterback. He is a good quarterback. He is not an elite quarterback. And he doesn't have a signature win. This was another opportunity to have a signature win over another really good quarterback in this league, and Josh Allen, a top 5 guy
At home.
And again, Geno looked bad. And I get the O-line's a problem. I get certain things, but when we talk about elite guys, they can occasionally overcome those things and excel and win games.
Right.
And that's where you get into that conversation. Now, I don't know if a cheaper option is the right thing, because I don't know if you're going to find a guy in the draft that's going to come in. Like, this team isn't at a point where you bring in a rookie quarterback. They're just
No.
not.
And I'm not. No.
But it's funny because, like, we were talking off air, and I think this is where another discussion needs to be had is, what is the definition of a franchise quarterback? Because there's so many people out there that say Geno's a franchise guy. Well, when I think of when I grew up watching football, and I'm, only 33, franchise guys were Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees, guys that were the top of the top. That's what you determined as a franchise guy. Now we're talking about franchise guys being Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, potentially Geno Smith, Brock Purdy. So is there 2 brackets to a franchise quarterback now, where there is the elite franchise quarterback, where you got Mahomes and Josh Allen and Burrow and all these guys are the top 5 are like these elite franchise. And then there's this clump of like 15 to 17 guys that are franchise quarterbacks, but they're just okay franchise quarterbacks. And then there's the rest. Like, when I think franchise, I think of the guy that, even if we are shit, he is still going to give us an amazing chance to win because he can do special things. I don't see that from Geno. And that's why I feel like Geno is a good NFL quarterback. He's just not an elite one. And so Geno's still under contract. He isn't playing as amazingly well. Like, he's got a bunch of incentives to get, escalators in his contract. Again, his interception today was dumb.
Yeah.
Why are you throwing that ball?
The
screen is blown up. Just turf it and dirt it.
Yeah.
Don't try and throw that. You threw it right through the D lineman to the next one behind him. Like, the play was dead. Let it be dead. Live for the next play. And that's where it drove me a bit nuts today with Geno. So, like Ian says here, I would say 2/3 of the roster.
That's a lot of guys.
That's a lot of guys. Like,
that's a lot of dudes. That's full rebuild mode.
Yeah, that's completely and restart. Hawks fan Matt has a good one in here.
I'll say this real quick, and I don't think that's going to happen at all. Because here's the thing: you just brought in Mike McDonald. Like, your point wasn't to say. I think you felt like this team was decent enough, and we've talked about, a lot of guys talk about, Mike can get them to this point, and then we'll. I don't think they'll do that. I think what they'll do is they'll evaluate who their key guy is. Like, we got a lot of talent in that D line and certain positions. But yeah, they'll be making. I think there'll be more bold moves in this offseason. And John will be under a microscope big time, man.
So this is exactly what Hawks fan Matt's kind of talking about here. Common denominator between Pete and Mike regimes is this roster constructed by John. I want Mike to have a chance with his players, but will John be willing to overhaul the players he chooses?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point.
It's going to be a thing, because now John is the guy. He is, and that's where, again, I look back to this point in the offseason when they talked about the draft, and was Mike McDonald's. Oh, no, Mike McDonald's guys. My guys are going to the combine. The coaches aren't going there. They have too much stuff to deal with. Your coaches need to be involved more in that process than probably you think. Most other teams' coaches, Kyle Shanahan, McVay, they're at the combine. They're looking at these guys too and interacting with these guys to see if they're the right kind of guys. That, to me, I think was a mistake this year.
It'll be interesting to evaluate this draft a couple years down the road.
I agree. So here's
past draft.
Here's another one. Ashraf says they should, and I apologize if I got that wrong. They should never have fired Pete. They missed hiring Dan Quinn. Look at what he is doing with the Commanders. This coach does have experience. Or maybe it's supposed to say doesn't have experience.
I'll say this real quick, Alicia. I think what she speaking on is where the direction of some of the fans are what
Mhm.
they're thinking right now.
Yeah,
Because
looking at Dan
like I
Quinn.
said,
Yep.
I think that the adage of like, well, he doesn't have his guys yet. That to me is like you can only say that so much. You got to show something. And I don't think people are like I think today was an example of like if we competed and looked better in an area like defensively, right? Like I think people would be okay with giving Mike more time as far but when it's not looking good at all,
Mhm.
like like badly and like you brought up Witherspoon looked better last year. Okay. And you just mentioned, is it a sophomore slump? I understand. Maybe it is. But we also have to say, is it Mike? And I think more Hawks fans will start questioning that as if the losses pile up, especially if we lose to the Rams, if we come out of the bye and go to Santa Clara and lose
Mhm.
that game, let's just put it on the table. If we lose against the Rams and then we go to Santa Clara out of the bye, we can lose the Niners. Let's see where the fans are at as collectively with Mike, because then you're close to 2/3 away of the year, um, and you're not in first place, and now you're getting close to late November. So, and I look, I'm not saying the one thing I will disagree with that is that I think it was time for Pete to go.
Mhm.
I've said that I don't think we should get him. And then there's always certain different circumstances, whether a team, what Washington's rosters like, etc. But I think I think you're gonna see those questions pop up more and more. Is what I'll say.
So I just like and this is just my 2 cents on the whole coaching side of things and getting a team.
Sure.
When Mike Holmgren came into Seattle and inherited them in 1999, they went 9-7, 6-10, 9-7, 7-9, 10-6, 9-7. Before in 2005, they went to their first Super Bowl as 13-3. Then they were 9-7, 10-6, and 4-12 again.
Yeah.
Like it takes a bit of time. And then if you flip that and we look at Pete and what Pete did when he came in, and I guess this again is people sometimes forget like Pete.
But I'll say record aside, like I'm like what people saw today, the product on the field today.
Yeah,
Like,
but
is it
don't
cost?
forget when Pete got his ass kicked by the Rams 52-7.
Oh, I remember that game. I think I was on vacation. I was like, okay, I'm gonna. I allotted some time because the Hawks were playing, and I think I shut her off pretty early. So trust me, I remember that game. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying early on, and I'm not sitting here, and so I don't want people to get me wrong. I don't think like he should be this magic man, but I think I'm just speaking for the average fan watching the game or attending
Yeah,
the game. Like you're gonna get those questions because of what you saw opposed to like wins or losses. Like, and I get it. Every coach has got their ass kicked, but it was like today. I think expectations were like, let's keep like if we had a clean game, even if Buffalo wins, I think we could accept it more. We just every facet of the game today was bad. Like we were trying to sit here and be positive with certain things, but you're like, what was good about today? And I think that's why you'll have a comment like we should have kept Pete, and not that
I agree.
maybe she doesn't even agree with that, but just the frustration of like what we're seeing as a product. Like if you're man, I we are losing at home consistently. Fans are going to start being like, am I going to pay money to go see this product? I mean, that's you got to get to a point where you got to have something respectable, right?
I I agree. I think, like Hamza says right now, no matter what happens this year, Mike is safe.
Oh, for
Maybe
sure.
in year 2 we can start like questioning things. I agree. True Drew Sports just chimed in. Nice to see you here, Drew.
I
If
think
we
to just to touch on that real quick,
Yep.
I think like I agree. We all agree Mike's safe
Yeah,
100%. Like
he's
he's
not
not going
going
anywhere.
anywhere.
He's probably safe after 2 seasons, more than likely. But I disagree with like I think you could still question things. I think that's you can always question like because like I said, I don't agree with let's just he gets a free pass in a way. That doesn't mean he's not safe. It's just more like you can definitely question things, especially if this was our last game of the year and we just continue. Like there'll be questions. Like we're sitting here today
Mhm.
with more questions than we have answers.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
We are definitely sitting here with more questions than answers, and
But he
I'm
said question. No, I don't mean. Yeah, I agree with you, Hams. Like, yeah,
yeah,
I don't think that we're not sitting here questioning his job. He's 100% safe, and I think he'd be the the year he wouldn't be would be year
agree.
3. Like
Yeah,
if it was the same issue. But I
yep,
think
exactly.
he's 100. No matter what happens, I think he's safe this year and next year. Like
I agree.
even at the end of next year, you wouldn't be like, is John going to fire him? I think there's more of a chance that
On
ownership starts looking at John.
Yep, I agree.
Right? That's what we're on the same page with that, man.
True Drew Sports chimes in here. If we hadn't kept shooting ourselves in the foot, this game would be different. I agree to an extent. There were too many things on the offensive side today that we couldn't fix. We couldn't run the ball. We couldn't do a lot of things. Like 1 of 7 on third down efficiency. Like that's horrible. Like we were outgained by almost 200 yards today. Like we're not winning a football game in those situations. Rocket Man Drums chimes in. I guess he's watching the Niners game and Cowgirls game right now, Cowboys.
Yeah.
The Niners are winning. And as Hawk fan Matt puts in, if the Niners win and we lose the Rams, we're suddenly in last place.
Yeah, well, we talked about that. The Rams are starting to go, and they believe in themselves. They have a veteran in Matt Stafford and a coach in McVay who's proven. So that's a scary game next week. That's for a
Yep.
combination of reasons. We're not playing good, and the Rams are starting to play better. So, yeah, Niners win. The Rams won. So if they beat us, yeah, he's right. Then they're ahead of us. And Zona is hovering around, right? That if we played Arizona right now, like they're a tough matchup
They're a
too.
tough
The
team. They're not an
divisional
easy
game,
out.
they were scrappy last year. I think they've gotten better. So yeah, he's 100% right, man.
Here you go from Rockman again. If the players don't trust the player beside them, they tend to do things out of the game plan or just screw the plan and try to do too much, and it just leads to mistakes. Agreed, right? True Drew Sports goes, Josh Jobe is a practice squad player for a reason. He got torched tonight. Granted, he got the interception, but he isn't a starting caliber corner and was getting picked on all game. That's fair. He was, but I don't see a massive difference right now between Josh Jobe and what Trey Brown was putting out on the field. Trey Brown was getting roasted the same amount while he was in games. So if that's the case, then we're stuck with our third corner being a practice squad level guy. If the guy that's supposed to be our starter out there in Brown, when we're in nickel, is getting roasted just as bad and looking as like he's struggling just as much, it doesn't really matter at that point. The other big thing for me, and this is something, you're not going to win football games when you have one explosive play for over 20 yards, which was on the touchdown drive late in the game when Bills don't give a shit and they throw it to AJ Barner and he gets 20 yards.
That was basically a garbage time TD.
Yep. Here's
I'll ask you. I was just thinking of that before you brought that up. You're right. You score 3 points. Like who? When the only decent drive, the drive that probably was the best drive, I think, was like at the beginning of the second quarter. There, they were moving the ball okay. They were kind of spreading around different guys. But when I look at it, like again, who is a threat on our offense? Like who are you like? Oh, he's he's going to scare the defense. A lot of the attention was on Ken Walker, taking Ken out of the game. I mean, that was the Bills' number one focus, taking Ken out of the game. And you saw, obviously, Grubb. I think Hawks fan Matt said, I saw something there like, they run him and they just run him straight up the middle into a brick wall. Yeah, like get creative with this guy. I understand they try to line him up outside. They, yeah, like here's exactly what I've said all freaking season. And like without DK, absolutely nobody. And that's why, like I said, you life without this guy, like that some people for some weird reason think that would be better for this squad.
so here's a stat for you, Ryan.
It's crazy.
Here's a stat. DK has played, I think it's 2 games he's missed now in total for the Hawks. And in that time frame, what is it? I had it right here. Give me 1 second here. It's a good stat. It leads more to that conversation. Okay, here you go. Seahawks wide receivers have played 2 full games without DK Metcalf. They've put up 2 plays of 20-plus yards. 2.
Wow.
Both were against that awful Arizona team last year, Bobo in the first quarter, and a busted coverage TD by JSN.
Mm-hmm.
And then AJ Barner today. So 3 over the last 2 years they've put up. Like, it screams that, hey, look, this is a problem. Like, you need this guy into your offense to do certain things. I had one up here from MMW.
The other thing I'd say to that too is that, like, you know, if you let him go, then you have to find a replacement, at least something close to it. Here's the thing: we were crying for years to get a big receiver in here. You know, because
Jimmy Graham trade was supposed to be
Jimmy Graham was like, here's the and he's, you know, the hybrid tight end, passing tight end, trying to make him something he isn't. But we were like, it would be awesome to have a big receiver in here. And then we get one. And there's a lot of people that love DK, but I just don't get that segment of people that don't like the guy. And you got to stop looking at, like, oh, well, he gets into it with DBs and he takes it's football, right? That stuff's going to happen, especially when guys are doubling and picking on this guy and all this kind of stuff. You know, it's funny. Like, I haven't heard anybody talking about, you know, Jaron Reed and Hall. You know, if that was DK grabbing a face mask,
oh gosh, that would have been all over national media.
It would be on ESPN. I guarantee it'd be on ESPN. So that's the other thing that some people, they buy into it. It's like watching the 6 o'clock news, like those people that believe everything, like they'll believe everything the national media puts out. This guy's got tons of value. So yeah, let's get.
So here we go. I'm going to throw up 2 more here that kind of go together. MMW, when do the Hawks have to start being accountable for their play? Players and coaches both. And it kind of goes into Hawk fan Matt's question here. Where are you guys on the coach versus talent debate as far as the majority of our issues coming from it? So they kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
They do.
I'll start with MM's one. The accountability, I think it's a 50-50 split right now. I think the players need to own 50 of it and the coaches need to own 50 of it. And to the talent versus coaching debate,
it's kind of what we've been talking about.
The majority of this issue, I don't think it's a massive discrepancy. I think it's 60 talent is an issue, and I think 40 is coaching. I think there's some pieces that Mike McDonald truly does need that he doesn't have right now for his defense, especially. And on offense, we know the offensive line's a deficiency.
Right.
So until we get that addressed and sorted, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
So I think, just touching on that too, I think I agree with close to that. I think where you said 40, it's like you got to take some responsibility and you got to get these guys playing. But like today was just reiterating, it was just really bad on all facets. So that again, that falls on the coaching. And like I said at the beginning, you have all these it's not like it's just Mike with veteran guys. Like, you have this veteran offensive coordinator. He took a shot, and Ryan Grubb might figure it out, but he took a shot and he went against the grain and he brought in a brand new guy from college, where some guys might say, no, you know what, I'll go get this guy. He's kicked around a couple teams. He's been doing it for 5, 6, 10 years. I'll do the safer play. But with that comes a gamble, because you don't know what you're getting from a first-year offensive coordinator and a first-year special teams guy. So that all that sort of piles on, and then there's going to be those questions.
No, for sure, man. But yeah, dude. Like, honestly,
more questions, right? Than
more
answers.
Questions than answers, and that'll be something that we'll discuss throughout this week. You know, I don't think you can beat this horse anymore. I think it's pretty.
You're getting lost for words, man.
I am. I truly am. Like, I'm just at this point. Like, we've discussed all of this 2 weeks ago, and now we're back at it again.
Well, so that's that's the frustrating part. Where, like, you just sort of want to see something where you're like, okay, this is looking better. This is getting cleaned up, opposed to like I don't want to be sitting here with you and being like, let's just wait till next year and wait for the offseason. We'll get it figured out, because there's no guarantees of that either. Like, if it was as easy as that and guys were just like, yeah, like, don't worry, with one full offseason and Mike there, like, this will be better. I think fans need to see some direction where that they can get behind that. I think that's kind of where we're at. And you thought it was there in the Atlanta game. I think you and I and a lot of people have to look at it now, like,
Transition and building.
enjoy the win for what it is, but don't think now this is a trend of like going into someone's house and beating by 20 and everything's clean. This might happen more than you think, right?
Making
So
the playoffs this year should be looked at as a massive achievement, in my opinion. That's where I am at mentally with this now.
Yeah.
We're in transition. We're in building. We're still going to have these ups and these downs constantly. Like, we could come out and whoop the Rams next week. We could. And then lay another massive egg versus.
That's the thing. I agree. We could, man. Like, it's because we came out, you look at the Niners loss, and I don't think you would expect we thought they would play good in Atlanta because of the 10-game stretch day off, but man, they really played like they put it on them. And then exact opposite today. So it's it's tough, man.
Couple more comments here.
Guys, we got a few minutes left.
He's been active the whole night in the chat. Love it.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
It sometimes feels like Grubb thinks he still has the Huskies O-line. No, I agree with you. 100% it does. Rockman drums. Tyler Lockett needs to take over punt return duties. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. They need to find a new punt returner. And again,
I think we thought that week 1.
Yep. I think D. Williams the experiment is over. You need someone that's just going to catch the punt and maybe get your 5 yards, maybe brace it. Chenault might be that guy.
Who brought that up about DJ Dallas? We were talking to, I was thinking the same thing. Like,
Mookie Alexander brought up DJ Dallas.
He secured the ball, and he'd get you 5 yards.
Brian Walters was the best for that, actually, during the Super Bowl run. He'd just catch the ball, fair catch, boom, we got it. We're guaranteed.
But you're a coach and all this kind of stuff. What's your most important thing as a guy returning a punt?
Just hang on to the damn ball. I want to get my offense out on the field.
Right,
Do not give it back.
And I think the problem is sometimes these guys think they're the guy. It's like, no, nobody cares about you. We want the offense back on the field. We don't care if you hit a home run, because if that means that you might fumble it, then no, that erases any. If you got 2 kickoff or punt returns, but you're making horrible decisions and you're dropping, but like, no, man, give me DJ Dallas all day with 0, house calls. And I think most guys would agree with that. But
yeah, man. No, I agree, man. It's going to be something that we're going to be discussing all week going into this Rams game, is how they get this right. But with that being said, guys, we've got we're going to wrap it up here. We've got a couple cool shows coming out this week. We got Rob Staten joining us from Seahawks Draft Blog. He's going to come in, give his opinion on what's going on with the state of the Seahawks.
That's going to be a good show.
It's going to be. I will prepare our listeners. It will be brutal honesty coming from Rob. As much as people think he's extremely negative and has a very jaded view, he's blunt. He's honest about what he feels and kind of will tell you that. And then later on in the week, we'll do our preview show of the Rams game. So we'll be having Chris Clough, former Seattle Times writer, covered the Seahawks during the Holmgren era and transitioning into the Pete Carroll era. He'll be coming on to kind of preview the Rams game, give us his thoughts. He runs a really good Twitter page, Seahawk Talk, and that's with a C for Hawk. And he's going to come on. It's going to be a lot of fun talking to Chris. We haven't had him on for a while. So, yeah, those are the 2 shows that will be coming out this week for you guys. So make sure you got those notifications and you're subbed to the channel so you don't miss them.
Guys, tune in for all that, because this was a tough one, man. This was a tough show for us today, just like a lot of you guys, man. It's a tough one. But, there's going to be some better days ahead. We know that. But, yeah, check out those shows. We can't wait to have Rob on in a couple days, man. You guys, if you haven't seen him yet on the show, you're going to love him. We love Rob, one of our favorite guests. Chris Clough, love him. Guys, can we say, man? Shit, we're done. We're lost for words. But hey, it's always another game. We got the Rams, so hey, you never know. Here we go. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.